Hey, welcome back to Run in Raleigh. Today we're going to be speaking about nutrition, health, and just general lifestyle issues that we deal with every single day, 3 times a day. Today we're speaking with Sarah Beth Short. She's an actor and a musician. And so what kind of acting have you done, Sarah Beth?
A little bit of acting on the stage was actually where I started, and then also done some film work also. So, been blessed to do both.
You're also a musician.
Yes.
You play the violin. You played a little bit of piano. You took some lessons with
A
that.
little bit there, but yeah, mostly violin and teaching little kids how to play violin also.
Okay. So when did you first awaken, as it were, to the idea that you need to be healthy, you need to think about food as a lifestyle, or food as part of your lifestyle?
Right. I think I was probably about 17. And growing up as a kid, you just eat anything that you get your hands on, and that's kind of what I did. And then as you get older and you mature and your body begins to change, you start experiencing different feelings from what you eat, and you kind of notice those. So I got interested in what I was eating and how it affected my body and myself. And probably about a year ago, I started eating a little bit more healthier.
Okay. So we're just going to talk first about a couple buzzwords, or several buzzwords that people think of when they think about nutrition and healthy. So first of all, carbs. What do you think of, or what do you know of when you think of or hear the word carbs?
Well, carbs are very important to a healthy lifestyle, but nowadays the modern American eats mostly carbs. Carbs, protein, fat, they eat mostly carbs, and that's what their bodies run off of, but it's not a very stable fuel source, if you will, and it's much better to be getting that fuel from a different source. As like fat is actually the best because we burn it better, and it lasts longer when you eat more fat as opposed to carbs. So it's a fuel source.
Fuel source. Protein.
Protein, that's also a fuel source, and a lot of times in healthy circles, the emphasis can be more on protein as your fuel source, but actually some studies have shown that you can age faster if you get most of your source of fuel from protein.
Like whey protein versus animal products protein versus protein you can find in, some
Vegetables.
types of vegetables.
They are different in the fact that some are not as bioavailable, if you will, so they're not as available to your body as other ones.
Like as far as breaking it down?
Right,
something
exactly.
You can use.
A lot of times when people say that vegetables have plenty of protein, such as vegans and vegetarians, they say we don't need to eat meat because we get plenty of protein from vegetables. And they say look at gorillas or elephants and these animals that they eat only vegetables and they're incredibly muscular. Well, the problem is they're more bioavailable to the protein, is more bioavailable to animals as opposed to humans.
Okay. Another buzzword, antioxidants.
Antioxidants. Those help with oxidation of food in your body and getting rid of free radicals, which is very important.
Some sources would be like coffee or...
Coffee has a very high source. The actual cacao bean is the highest source of antioxidants on the planet as far as what I've read.
Okay. Fats, source of energy that people do get a lot of these days, it seems.
Well, that's the wrong kind of fat, though.
Last buzzword is gluten and dairy. Gluten and dairy products.
Well, there's a big gluten-free crowd now, but you also have to be careful about being at the supermarket or the grocery store and saying, oh, well, it says gluten-free, must be healthy for me. That's actually not true. Sometimes it can have unhealthy ingredients. But just to the point of gluten and dairy is a lot of times a majority of humans nowadays in the current culture actually are sensitive to gluten and dairy, but we don't exhibit symptoms as much as some people. So some people who have celiac disease or are seriously affected by gluten and they notice serious effects, they're more highly likely, they have like higher inflammation rates and stuff like that, but we all tend to have a sensitivity to it. So
inflammation, use the word inflammation, that's pretty much what the
big problem.
The deal is behind. We'll go into that a little bit later.
Yes.
But now we're going to move to some specific types of foods, some nutrients that they offer. So looking at the screen here, we can see you got some asparagus, some tangerines, looks like they're avocados, garlic. So just give me a kind of background on like fruits versus vegetables. Would you say as a whole, one is better for you than the other?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of people say eat your fruits and vegetables, but actually the term that I've heard used that is a very good definition is that fruits are actually nature's candy. They have a very high amount of sugar. It's natural sugar, but it's fructose, and it actually is not a good fuel source, and it can actually make you hungrier. Whereas your vegetables have very important vitamins and stuff that you need that you can't just supplement with the little supplements and be like, oh, this is good. No, you need to eat your vegetables fresh and from the source.
Okay, so pointing fingers and naming names from the screen, what would you say
What we
for
should
each
eat,
of these? Yeah.
Okay, well, the tomatoes and the bell peppers, I would say you might not want to eat as frequently because they can tend to have some inflammation.
Okay.
And you really don't want to cause inflammation.
Tomatoes are fruit after all.
Yeah, exactly. And then the fruits, you can eat them occasionally. The best time to do it that I've heard is in the evening, but you should have a small serving, and you should treat it like a dessert, a treat, a candy, and not just as a part of your meal, if you will.
What about eating fruits for like quick energy, for a carb boost, if you're going to go, say, run or do exercise or something like that?
That it does work for that. Just be aware of how much you're putting in your body, and are you actually giving yourself a good fuel source, or are you just giving yourself an energy spike? Because a lot of times fruit can, with all that fructose, is it gives you an energy spike, but then you can be very hungry afterwards.
So energy, not fuel.
Right, exactly. So it's more energy instead of fuel. If you are looking for something that's a good source of fuel in a short amount of time, avocados would be great because they have such a high amount of fat, and they have a lot of vitamins in them, and they're very easy to eat. You just cut it in half and put some salt on it, some Himalayan pink salt or something like that, and so then that'll give you sustainable energy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to fats or proteins, or that meats have a lot to offer. So, like, what are some specific ones? And also, let's talk about grass-fed versus
That's what
factory raised, or
Right.
free range versus corn-fed, stuff like that.
It's very important where you get your meat from, and some of the recent documentaries that have come out talking about, in the end, endorsing veganism, they reference meat, just meat, and that's all they say. They understand, I'm sure, but they don't reference the difference in where the meat comes from and how it's made. So if you have grass-fed beef as opposed to industrialized beef, there's a huge difference because the cows are in their natural habitat of a field, and they're eating grass unless it's wintertime, and then maybe they're eating hay. And then on the industrialized meat side, you have cows in little teeny tiny cages, and they're having food pumped into them. So there's a huge difference there.
And it's as gross as it sounds.
Yes, it's very, very disgusting. So people need to reference the difference there when you say meat. What kind of meat are you talking about? So that's a big difference. And then also with chicken, you can have free-range chicken where they're running around in the field and they're eating bugs, which is the way God created them to eat. And then you can have chickens that are in a chicken house where there are thousands of chickens crammed into this place where they have no room to move around, and they literally are just standing there. And they're eating soybeans, they're eating corn, they're eating, they just die right there among each other, and then people eat them. So people need to understand the difference there and talk about the difference. So if it's grass-fed beef, it has some amazing vitamins. And then if it's industrialized, it can actually have some very bad effects on you.
And you can tell when it's grass-fed beef because you had that one time when you took the meat back.
Yes, because if you're cooking it, you can smell the difference between grass-fed as opposed to corn-fed if you know what to smell for. And so I had to return it because they had said it was grass-fed and it was not. Yeah.
So chicken meat, chickens not only offer meat, they also offer eggs,
Yes.
which is considered dairy, but you still eat eggs, right?
Yes, eggs are fantastic, especially the egg yolk has some amazing vitamins, especially for your brain. Very good vitamins for your brain.
Okay.
And a lot of times, the healthy side people are like, oh, you should eat more egg white because the egg yolk has a lot of fat, but it's very important fats. And you really need to make sure that when you're asking someone about whether it's corn-fed or grass-fed, because this is important when you're eating meat.
Because the price, too.
Yes,
Big
exactly.
difference.
And make sure they know what they're talking about, because if it can be grass-fed, but it's not grass-finished, and then it's actually just as bad as corn-fed because they finish it up with corn to fatten it up before they slaughter it, and that defeats basically the entire purpose.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit here. We're still talking about food.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about calories. That's another big buzzword, but I thought
Let's
we'd
count calories.
give it a whole segment in itself. Meat has a lot of calories.
Mm-hmm.
Are all calories created equally?
No, they're not. And I actually don't believe in the whole counting calories thing. I think it's more important that you focus on, I think it is important to focus on carbs, protein, and fat. Be aware of how much you're putting into your body of each of those throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really need to count calories. As long as you're eating healthy foods, and when I say healthy foods, it's, if at all possible, local organic vegetables, grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, local fruits in season. Then as long as you're focusing on your carbs, protein, and fat intake, you shouldn't have to count your calories, and you should listen to your body and what is it hungry? And a lot of times it's really weird, but if you eat healthy enough, your body will tell you what vitamins you need by what food you're craving.
Okay, so do not count your calories.
Yeah,
It's not hard, but it's just like you don't have to.
Yeah, unless you eat at McDonald's, and then maybe you should count your calories.
You're getting some other stuff. You're getting some preservatives.
Yeah,
you're getting
exactly.
Some
Pink slime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so also calories with respect to gender differences,
Mhm.
activity level. What do you have to say on that?
That's very important because if you are very, very active, then you can be eating more. And then if you have a very sedate lifestyle where you don't do a lot and you don't do a lot of movement, then you're going to need to do less eating, basically. So just be aware of that. And also carb intake is a big thing too. So if you are very active and you run, then you're going to need a lot more carbs than someone who maybe works out for like 30 minutes every other day.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to be aware of that, and that all comes into with the protein, carbs, and fat, and you would determine how much you need based on that. You do need to feed your body carbs though. If you go into a complete keto lifestyle where you eat high amounts of fat, medium amounts of protein, and basically no carbs, it can actually be difficult for your thyroid. And you could also have some negative effects from that, and also some inflammation, just because your body's like, well, I haven't had carbs in a really long time. So you need to make sure you have something called like a carb refeed day, maybe once a week, where you don't go buy a cake and you don't eat sugar, but maybe have some sweet potatoes.
And you don't call it a cheat day, do you?
No, don't call it a cheat day. Don't have cheat days. Those are bad.
Okay, so for various exercises,
Mm-hmm.
Running versus, you do Pilates versus working out in the gym versus powerlifting even, or fighting. What types are people eating different things when they do each of these different activities, like day to day?
Yeah, I think it's important that you remember how your muscles are built. So when you work out and say you're doing a HIIT workout, like a high intensity interval training, what you're trying to do is you're ripping your muscles and then you want them to grow back. So if you're doing something where you want to build muscle, so you're lifting a lot of weights, very heavy weights, you shred your muscles and then you let them build back over about 2 days. And it's actually the time when you're not lifting weights that you're building your muscle. And if you do...
So the time that you're not lifting, is that when it's important to eat right, or you just have to eat right
Basically the whole time. You want to make sure you're eating properly the whole time. But I've also read recommendations that you take maybe collagen protein from grass-fed cows the morning of and the morning after you work out. It helps, collagen, it helps growing your skin and your muscles and all that kind of stuff. And then you also need a little bit more protein. So obviously it's also different male versus female. You're going to need more protein if you're a male, but then it also depends on if you're a female weightlifter. It's going to be different. You just have to determine what works best for your body.
Okay, so aside from, like you said, morning before, morning after,
Yeah.
some people have different workout schedules, but
Right.
that just goes in general for you just need to know about when.
Exactly. And biohack. So figure out what works for you, because you just got to experiment.
Biohack?
Biohack, that means, hack your body. Try to figure out what works best, and you need to write stuff down. I think is very important. So write down how you felt, and then what how did you build muscle? Did you feel more tired? Did it build quickly? Did you have inflammation? No inflammation? Were you more hungry, less hungry? Write that kind of stuff down, and then you'll start to see patterns, and you can determine what works best.
All right, so last subject, we're going to talk about lifestyle and restaurants, eating out. Where should you go eat out, if at all?
That's a good question. I think there are healthy options if you want to eat out, but the biggest thing is try to eat in if at all possible, or prepare your food ahead of time and take it with you. I believe it's Dr. Gundry who said, someone asked him what the key thing was, or what's one takeaway that we can take away from everything you've said in this long interview? And he said, eat before you go to the party. You have to decide whether you want to lose weight quickly, you want to train for an event specifically and then be done, or if you want to live a longer and better life. Of course, it's completely up to the Lord. He can take you in a second. Your heart could stop working. You could stop breathing. You could get hit by a car, struck by lightning, or you could die of old age. So it's completely up to the Lord, and it's in His hands. But there is a point where you can eat better and take better care of your body, which is the temple of the Lord. So in a lifestyle sense, you have to decide, do I want to eat better so that I can function better? And in that sense, don't have cheat days where you ate really well all week and then you have a whole Saturday where you eat nothing but ice cream and donuts. And that kind of sets you back because it takes 3 days for that to get through your system. So you're eating terribly on, say, Saturday, and then you feel miserable Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then Wednesday you're starting to get back to oh, I feel better now. And then what, you're going to do it again on Saturday?
So you found that eating this way in the long run helps you feel better, but you're also able to retrain yourself what you think is good, what tastes good, right?
Mm-hmm. I believe that really does happen. Because it took me a couple months. I mean, you have to get used to eating, because you also have to look at your cooking methods. So sometimes you end up eating things a little bit less cooked than they usually are, different seasonings and stuff like that. But you need to make sure that you train your taste buds, and you will feel better over time. And it's better than the satisfaction of having a bowl of ice cream that's full of dairy and sugar, and then it takes you 3 days to recover. Do you really want to do that to your body when you don't have to?
Okay, so bringing this full circle, with respect to running, I assume you have to eat a whole bunch of calories because the other day I calculated I burned 2,500 calories in a single run. It wasn't even a full marathon. So I'm still training. There's going to be, there's 2 months to go up until the Richmond Marathon. But so what do I need to be thinking about? What do runners in general need to be thinking about when they're doing distance running? Not necessarily quick, quarter mile, 100-meter sprints, but long term. Do they need to think about supplements?
I would definitely say supplements, and then also make sure you get, I guess you could say a fat bomb not right before you run, but a little while before you run so that you get that sustainable energy which fat gives. Carbs in the evening would be great because it helps you kind of refeed from your long runs, and then also carbs help you sleep better. Not that you need to necessarily sleep better after running that long.
No problem.
No problem. And then just make sure you feed your body when it needs food. If it tells you it needs food, you gotta feed it. And then making sure you eat on a schedule is also very beneficial.
All right, well, that's been great. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
The time to be my sister.
You're welcome.
It's been years in the making, I know. I appreciate your expertise on this episode, and we're going to actually have her back for a little bit more detailed look at nutrients. We're going to dig into certain specific lifestyles, certain they're buzzwords for that lifestyle, but they're very niche, very esoteric, very arcane, let's say. And hopefully everyone will be looking forward to that. I know she probably is.
Come along, let us put it up together. Come along, be it fair or stormy weather, with the hills of home before us and the park below the heather. Let us sing in happy chorus. Come along.
Well, one thing that's really interesting is everyone says you should eat your fruits.
Okay, we're going to cut it right there after I ask you that.
Okay.
If I go like that, you're kind of running long.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that. Are you saying I'm talking to us?
Yes.
Okay.
Define healthy at some point.
Okay.
Because
We can do that.
That takes
people have problems with defining healthy.
Right.
I can do that.
What's the name of your show, Adam?
And I thought that was so good.
That is very, yeah.
Because when you go to a party,
Miss. Our show gone.
don't you The
Oh, we need
Oh.
recording.
So
At
what are we
least we're
talking?
shooting at lunch. And we're wrapping it up somehow.
Okay. And come back next time.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Okay, you just had a smile that would not have cut well.
I told her how to cook
Can you
broccoli,
interview
I
me?
guess.
I already did, Abby.
That was an interview?
Yes.
I don't know why she thought she could eat it in Yabby Jr. I was like, Mom, they cook everything in oil.